Did Rebecca Park's own mother, Cortney Bartholomew, and her stepfather, Bradley Bartholomew, plot to kill her and steal her unborn baby? And once they were caught, did they turn on each other with horrific confessions, each blaming the other for the stabbing and the brutal cesarean section? There is shocking new information that we have obtained from court documents that lay out a nightmarish he said, she said between Bradly and Cortney that you really have to see to believe. We're going to break it all down for you right now with former state attorney Dave Aronberg. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Okay, I gotta say this real quick. So we use something here at Law&Crime that can actually be very useful to you. It is called Truth Finder. It is a powerful public record search service. You wanna talk about useful? You plug in a name, you get address information, criminal history, and let me say that can give you some peace of mind. Truth Finder is one of the largest public record search services in the United States. And with a paid subscription, you can get access to unlimited reports about almost anyone. And that includes, by the way, looking up registered sex offenders in your area too. By the way, you might be shocked to look up yourself and see what's out there. So stay informed, stay safe, check public records with Truth Finder now at truthfinder.com/LC Sidebar. There is this very wild and deeply disturbing case out of Wexford County, Michigan that we got to talk about. Now, if you've been following us here at Sidebar, you're going to remember this one. At the center of the allegations is Rebecca Park, a 22-year-old woman who was 38 weeks pregnant when she was reported missing in early November. And what police describe as a desperate missing persons case is alleged to have quickly spiraled into a nightmare of murder, lies, betrayal. The charges, as filed by prosecutors, this is what it alleges: that Rebecca's body was found weeks later in a wooded area. An autopsy cited in the affidavits indicates that she had been stabbed multiple times and her baby had been cut from her womb. The investigation, according to the court documents, led detectives through a tangled web of family drama and secret relationships and what they characterize as a flood of deliberate misinformation. Now, initially, the investigative focus turned to Rebecca's own sister, Kimberly Park, who first reported her missing. The affidavit for Kimberly's arrest shows that her story kept on changing. She eventually allegedly admitted to lying to police, stating she was fed false stories by Rebecca's boyfriend, Richard Falor, to throw suspicion onto their biological mother, Cortney Bartholomew, and her husband, Rebecca's stepfather, Bradly Bartholomew. Now, Kimberly's arrest affidavit includes her alleged confession that Falor told her he killed Rebecca. But crucially, those specific murder allegations against Falor appear to have gone nowhere. The murder charge that he was initially facing, open murder, that seems to have been dropped. The case against him seems to have stalled. At least for now, he is facing drug charges, but authorities say it's Cortney and Brad who are responsible. According to detectives, this was just the first layer. The more severe allegations are in the charging documents for Bradly and Cortney Bartholomew. They're both charged with first-degree murder, torture, unlawful imprisonment. There's other charges as well. The probable cause affidavits supporting those charges are chilling, to say the least. They allege a story of premeditation, of a plan to get Rebecca to their home. The documents detail how, according to the conflicting accounts, by the way, conflicting accounts that Bradly and Cortney later gave police, that Rebecca was put into a truck, driven to a remote trail, stabbed, and then, while she was there, allegedly still alive, subjected to basically a cesarean section to remove her baby. The baby, the documents state, did not survive, but the baby has not been found. And a particularly shocking element within the affidavits in the description of Bradly and Cortney once in custody, this is immediately now, they're turning on each other in separate interviews. They're pointing the finger at one another. Their recorded statements, as summarized by detectives, it presents this macabre he said, she said, each blaming the other for the stabbing and for cutting the baby out. One claims it was a revenge plot against Falor. The other claims it was about stealing the baby. The detectives' notes from those interviews lay out what they describe as a scene of cruelty. So the allegations present a scenario involving a murdered young mother, an infant removed from her womb, dead, a sister who confessed to lying to police, allegedly, a boyfriend implicated by others in the cover-up, and the birth mother and stepfather seemingly accusing each other from their jail cells. So you want to see how detectives allege that they piece this whole case together? I know it's complicated. Well, the court documents, especially those probable cause affidavits, provide the raw, unfiltered narratives. It's all in the documents. To help us make sense of this, or try to make sense of this legal maze and the shocking allegations, we're bringing in somebody who has spent his career in the trenches of cases like this, former Palm Beach County State Attorney Dave Aronberg, who's with me on set. Dave, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate it. First of all, before everybody knows, I think everybody loves the work that you do. You have a Substack as well.
Thanks, Jesse.
Right?
Yeah, Dave Aronberg, Davearonberg. I'm on Substack. And I call myself the Florida Lawman, and I appreciate the plug. Also, You can find me doing videos on YouTube for Legal AF and Midas Touch Network.
This is why we love you. I mean, you have a great expertise in this, trying to sort out what is a complicated case. I want to start here. Yeah. So with the first person arrested in this case, it wasn't for murder. It was for allegedly lying to authorities. We're talking about Kimberly Park. This is Rebecca's sister. She was the one who originally reported her missing. But according to her arrest affidavit, it says that Kimberly was communicating with the detective throughout the investigation. But then, on a social media live broadcast, she accused her mother, Cortney, and stepfather, Bradly, of being involved. And when police interviewed her about that, she gave them a detailed story, that it was Cortney and Bradly that had struck Rebecca in the head, caused a seizure, and then had a friend come take the body away. But the affidavit states that just days later, after Rebecca's body was found, Kimberly apparently changed her story entirely in an interview. I want to look at that document. It quotes her new statement, quote, Park identified that on Tuesday, November 4th, 2025, while she was at Richard Falor's home, he told her that he killed Rebecca Park and that he wanted to protect Kimberly by not sharing details with her. Park said that Falor had also been encouraging her to mislead the investigation, and it was the reason she was sharing misleading information on social media live broadcasts. And she also allegedly said that Rebecca was stored in another location, but apparently law enforcement looked into this. There was nothing to back it up. Dave, this is like a complete 180, and it's confusing why she would allegedly lie.
Yeah, perhaps she was trying to protect her mother at one point, but then the stories keep changing and you wonder if there's some mental issues with the sister. This is going to be a problem for prosecutors in that you have all these moving parts, these different people who keep pointing the fingers at each other. And when you start doing that, it could lead to some reasonable doubt, even though it's pretty clear now that this was a heinous, horrific crime caused by deranged individuals, and there is plenty of motive involved here.
But authorities don't believe Falor was involved in the murder. He was originally arrested on open murder. That seems to have been dropped.
Correct.
He's just facing drug charges. So they don't believe her account, which also makes me wonder if she would even be a reliable witness at a trial, if she worked out some sort of deal, considering what she's facing in light of Cortney and Bradly. Is she a reliable narrator?
No, she's not reliable at all because she's been lying to police. And you have people, I saw Falor interviewed, he didn't come across as very credible, and now the sister doesn't come across as credible. So you wonder if they're going to have that witness that prosecutors like to have, who's like the narrator of the whole story, right. Someone who leads the jury into what happened, because it is kind of complicated here with all these different people, moving parts. So this is a little bit of a problem for prosecutors, although the evidence is what it is.
And let's go into that. So that was just the alleged obstruction case, right? Now the murder allegations are against the biological mother of Cortney, the husband, Bradly. They're both charged with first-degree murder, torture. There's a horrific charge related to the assault of a pregnant individual causing miscarriage or stillbirth. Right in the middle of the probable cause affidavit for Bradly, we get to the heart of this case. These are these recorded interviews with Bradly and Cortney after they were taken into custody. And the affidavit describes them being interviewed separately. Not a surprise there. And Dave, this is where it gets really sinister, really macabre, because they immediately start blaming each other. And the detective writes that their stories are a classic he said, she said, but obviously they have this nightmarish twist. So I want to go to the scene using the affidavit. It alleges that in Bradly's interview, he initially pointed the finger at Cortney. He's quoted as saying, I'm sure Cortney stabbed her because she did have a hunting knife. He goes on to allege, according to the affidavit, that he was there, claimed that Cortney was the one who stabbed Rebecca and then performed this crude C-section. He said he witnessed it, that it happened on a trail behind their house, that Cortney wanted the baby for herself. Then in Cortney's separate interview, summarized in the same affidavit, she allegedly tells the opposite story. When asked, what do you think Bradly has been telling us, she allegedly said, he's probably saying it's both of them. And then she lays out her version. She allegedly claims that Bradly pulled Rebecca from the car, put her in a truck, that he was the one who stabbed Rebecca and cut the baby out. And she claims he told her it was revenge against Richard Falor for his relationship, or alleged relationship in all this. Dave, as a prosecutor here, how do you sort through that information and you're charging both of them, even though they're pointing the finger at one another?
Sometimes you just don't know what the truth is. You're dealing with untruthful individuals, and so you charge them both. You can charge them both with the conspiracy, and with the conspiracy, you have to have an agreement and between two or more people and one overt act. Well, you've got that here.
They're charging conspiracy too, yeah.
That's right. That's the reason why I do it. I think conspiracy is one of prosecutors' best friends, because you can get a conviction when you don't know who actually was the murderer. You can also charge them both as principals if they're both involved in this scheme, but it seems like Cortney is saying that they're both involved, while Bradly is saying, no, it's just Cortney who is involved.
So, A, do any of these statements come into trial, because I imagine it would confuse a jury, or B, do prosecutors just say they're both responsible, Rebecca was stabbed, the baby was cut out of her womb? Do they not get specific on who did what?
Well, the statements are coming in.
Because
it's not hearsay, because it's a statement by a defendant, by a party opponent. But as far as whether the prosecutors want the statements in, it doesn't matter, because the defense will bring in the statements, and whoever they're representing will say, oh, look at the difference, the different accounts here. This is all reasonable doubt. You want to confuse the jury so that they're left wondering who did it and why. And why would a mother do this to her daughter?
You're saying at a trial, if they're tried together, defense attorneys are going to be pointing the finger at the other person, saying they're responsible, like in the same trial.
Well, together or separately.
Yeah, well, separately for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Either way, this is their best defense. That's why they will both have their own lawyers, because it's a clear conflict to represent them both, and they're both going to point the finger at each other. That's their best defense. And now you have the added specter of the daughter, the sister of the victim, who was saying, well, no, it was Falor who did it. Falor who did it. So now you've got three potential suspects for this murder. That's why the conspiracy is crucial for prosecutors, because you don't have to identify who it was who killed her.
And I want to go into the detective writing about the evidence that they were collecting, that they say contradicts their early stories, supports elements of the crime. So, for instance, the document states that early on, Cortney told police that Rebecca left her house in a mysterious black sedan with tinted windows. It was a story that sent investigators essentially down a false lead, because later in an interview, the affidavit quotes her admitting, Cortney confirmed for Detective Lieutenant Pisker that the story about the black car was made up and never happened. And the affidavit also details what detectives call consciousness of guilt actions. It states that a state trooper, while securing their home, overheard Cortney tell Bradly that the seat covers from their white Ford F-150 truck had recently been burned due to a spill. Cell phone records obtained via search warrant and outlined in the affidavit allegedly place both of their devices in the area where Rebecca's body was later found on the night she disappeared. And maybe one of the most chilling details from the forensic side, the autopsy report. Okay, it states that Rebecca had multiple sharp force wounds, that her abdomen had been cut open with the fetus absent, but it also notes a specific kind of odd finding that her stomach contained, quote, copious amounts of a blue-green chalky residue. Dave, it's clear she was killed. She was brutally killed. The baby, I think by all accounts is dead. They don't know where it is, or we don't know. But the forensic evidence, the actual evidence here, what does that tell you about the story?
Well, it's going to inflame the jurors. The jurors are going to be outraged when they hear that he had a baby killed in this way and the mother's stomach cut open. I mean, they're going to want to find someone guilty. So that helps the prosecution. The problem is that although these defendants don't seem to be very bright, quite frankly, they may be crazy like a fox in that they may luck into getting reasonable doubt because there's so many different explanations. There are so many different people to point fingers at, whether it's the sister, the Falor, whether it's the boy, the husband, or the mother. And there's so much going on here that you need to focus the jurors, keep their eye on the ball, that you don't need to identify who killed them. You just have to identify that there was a murder and that there was an agreement. Perhaps the fact that they were there at the same time, that tells you a lot. What was he doing there, the mother's husband? What was he doing there if unless he was involved in it. He was just an innocent bystander.
And it's really confusing because there's these allegations like, why would he get involved? Well, if Falor, there's been allegations that he was romantically involved with multiple women in this case.
Right. Both sisters.
And I think that, this is idea of like, oh my gosh, was this a revenge plot of some sort? Or did Cortney want the baby for herself in a twisted kind of
but you hit on that.
Yeah.
That's important because the jurors want to know the why. That's the thing. They don't have to. The why motive is not an element to a murder case, but jurors want to know. And that's a compelling reason. You have this deranged mother who wants the child for herself. It's like out of a horror movie.
And again, if she's saying things or he's saying things that are not backed up by the evidence, it does become a question of, do they try to sort it out and come up with a direct, clear narrative and theory of what happened to Rebecca and this baby to tell the jury?
It depends on the evidence.
Yeah.
It looks pretty clear that you can focus on one person. The evidence points to that. We don't have all the evidence available to us. Then you can do that. But if it is what we're talking about now, then the better approach, I think, is not to try to lock yourself in to one approach, one explanation. Just say they were there, they agreed, there were no innocent bystanders here, they're all going down for it.
And there's this lingering question, right? Richard Falor, the boyfriend that Kimberly first implicated, then recanted, later said he confessed to her. He's not charged with murder anymore. In fact, the murder-related charges seem to have been dropped. He was arrested on these separate older drug charges. But according to the allegations in Kimberly's affidavit and the statements from Bradly and Cortney blaming each other, his name is all over this case as a potential motive, either as a co-conspirator or target of revenge, a manipulator. And based on what we see in these documents, you do wonder, could there be a change with respect to him?
Yeah, and that's when I say all, because I don't know how many people. I mean, is it just the two of them, or is Falor part of it as well? So that, I think, is a possibility that they bring him back in. When I saw Falor's first interview at the beginning, when the victim went missing, it was a little deceptive, I thought. I mean, when I saw, he said, well, you can ask anyone. We were always texting each other all day. We were in touch. Just ask anyone. Like, why are you being so defensive, dude? So I think that there's a chance that he could be charged more seriously. But either way, he's still charged with a serious crime.
Look, at the end of the day, this is a awful, awful, awful killing. I mean, even before people were arrested and we talked about her body being found, your mind races to the worst possible scenario. Unfortunately, it's been confirmed by the affidavits, at the very least, about what happened to her and what happened to the baby. It's horrifying to think about. And the idea that the loved ones might be responsible, it's again, unthinkable. Dave, thank you so much for taking the time. Really, really appreciate it, and love that you came in. Dave Aronberg, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Appreciate it. And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can follow me on X or Instagram. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.